Good morning. Now I have another project. We're going to be doing a project where we use 2030 Flux, which is a Thompson enamel, and that's a transparent, and we're going to use soft white again. Oops, there we go. We're going to use soft white again, and here is our piece of copper. This is 3 inches by 4 inches, 1.2 millimeters thick, and I'm going to divide it in half. That's why I'm just using this piece of card to start with, and I've just done a really basic plan, which hopefully you can see it, and I'll put this up actually at the end of the video as well in the notes at the bottom. It's going to be a really basic video on using I'm going to start with some transparents over the next few videos, just to show you what they're all about, and using a combination of opaque and transparent on this particular tile. I'm not sure if we'll use, a nice artistic stencil yet, but we're just going to use really basically just go, divide it in half and then divide it into quarters, and we'll be layering transparent and opaque on top of each other and seeing how that looks. Okay. So we shall get on with it. We're starting off with white, like we did some of the last videos, and I'm using an 80 mesh sifter this time, not 100 mesh. So that's the 80 mesh sifter. I'm putting a pretty good coat on this, because I want at least part of this white to look very, well, I want it all to look very even, but you'll see some of it will burn off, but I want to kind of have the initial firing to look quite tile-like. So I'm going to get that into the oven, into the kiln. It's quite easy to remove that, and I'm going to I'm going to let those little grains stay there. I don't know if you can see them. They'll burn off because they're so small. And then we'll see what this looks like when it comes out of the kiln. Okay, here we go. Here's our tile. It's been in for 1 minute and 40 seconds. And as you can see, my measuring wasn't very good, but anyway, you can see that the white has the orange peel texture, which is fine. It's a pretty even coat, so I'm happy about that. And then we've got our usual oxides here, which are sort of starting to chip off. Now I'm going to let that cool. I'll take it off this mesh. I don't have any counter enamel on it at the moment. That will happen very soon. It's very hot. I'll just put this iron on, suck up some of the heat, and then we'll let it fully cool down, and we'll get on with our transparent enamel. So there you go. I'll meet you back at the enamelling station. So here's our tile, and I'm happy with that. I think it looks nice. I really love the copper showing through like that. Now all those oxides will still be seen once we get the transparent flux on, and this is the one I'm using, the 2030. Again, I'm using another 80 mesh sifter. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to use a 100 mesh sifter for this. This is brand new flux. It has, which means the grains are, some of them are very, very small. So I don't want the really big ones going through. I'm just going to use quite a light covering of this, and then we'll fire it. Oh yeah, I need to also, I don't want it going onto the white, so I'm going to cover the white up. I might even leave a little gap, actually. I think I'll leave a little gap so that there's nothing on. And then we can have a look at how that turns out. A little bit, not too much in. Probably a bit more than that. And I'm going to just zoom up a little bit so you can see a bit closer what I'm doing. And again, I'm just trying to do an even layer. I think that's probably good enough. I can slightly see the copper underneath it, but probably only because it's dark. I'll remove this. And this is what we have going into the kiln. Flux, bare copper and white. And I'm going to put that on for 2 minutes this time. Okay, very happy with that. So you can see the white has definitely fused more. It's gone much shinier. There's a little bit of oxides coming through here. There's our bare copper, which has gone very black, and this is our transparent enamel, which basically shows the copper is showing through it. Here's where the oxides actually came off, and then where it's very black, the oxides remained there. Now, transparent enamels need to be fired usually slightly hotter and for slightly longer. They benefit from being fired more frequently at a slightly hotter temperature. But I kind of generally use 800 degrees Celsius for most of my enameling, unless I'm doing something very particular. So let's let this cool down, and then we'll have a look at it. We're going to have a quick look at our piece of copper now that it's cooled down. You'll notice that this has gone from being very golden to actually being quite red underneath. This is the bare copper. The black oxides have chipped off. I gave them a little scrub. And here's the white. The white has got a little bit of a few black specks in it. That's from the bare copper. That's from the oxides sort of pinging off in the kiln and onto the white. Now, for copper work, I don't let that bother me unless there's something really big and black in there. But otherwise, it's absolutely fine. Now, I'm going to show you the back. So there's the back. I'm going to put liquid enamel on the back. You'll have seen it in some of the other videos. I'll do that off screen because it's not that exciting. So we'll put counter enamel on the back, and then we'll let that dry. Then we will go and fire again. And the other thing I wanted to point out here, I don't know if you can see them, there are little dots here where the copper oxides actually broke through the transparent enamel. That's probably because they were a little bit loose from the first firing. Again, if I was trying to get a really good finish of flux on this, I wouldn't have fired it. I wouldn't have put it right on top of those little bits of oxides. But I'll show you an example in another video of 2 ways of doing it. Anyway, I usually use those actually to nice effect in some things. Okay, we're back again with our soft white, and what I want to do is have this portion to be very white. I accidentally dropped my tile on the floor, so it's got a little bit of a dent. It also has the liquid enamel on the back, which is not fired, but it's dry. What I want to do is cover up that white one, and I want to cover up this. Now, it doesn't matter that there's a little bit peeping there. I can always brush that off. Okay, I think that's all right. A bit more. We're still using the Eddy Mesh sifter here. I'm putting quite a lot on, so because I want this nice and graphic looking. Ooh, I moved this one a bit. I'm not going to worry about that. So we're going to fire this again, and we're going to see how the firing affects these 2 areas here that are exposed, that don't have any additional enamel on them. I'm going to brush a little bit of this away. There we go. Let's see how that looks. Okay, here's our tile. Just fresh from the kiln, so it's very black. And so we've got this very black piece, totally bare copper, oxidized. We have got our transparent, otherwise known as flux, which is not to be confused with the goldsmithing and silversmithing flux. I don't know why they use the same name. It'll probably start going a little bit redder once it cools down. We've got our very flat white, and we've got our white that has been that only had the one layer and that was exposed to a second firing with no extra enamel on top. And we have the back. Now I'm actually going to dip it in water just to speed this up. Don't dip something in water straight from the kiln because it might crack it. But this is slightly cooler now, so you'll hear a sizzling. Actually, I'll bring you over to my little bucket of water here. Now when you do that, you do need to leave it in for a couple of seconds, because if you do it too fast, you'll take it out and it'll burn you because it'll still be really hot. Okay, so that's our copper tile, and I just have, it's just full of oxides, this bucket. I'm just using this little green scrubber to scrub away the loose oxides off the edges. You always have to do that. Now a bit of the counter enamel from the back has gone on the side. I'm going to actually take that off because I don't like that kind of thing. It looks messy. And I will use these files here are diamond embedded files. They're steel files, but they're especially designed to use wet, so they don't rust, and they're for enamel, because you don't want to be filing enamel while it's dry, because then the enamel will just sort of puff all over the place and you'll inhale it. So basically I'm just gently taking that off. And sometimes people, when they're finishing pieces, they don't like to have that black edge. I actually really like that black edge, but sometimes I do file it off so it has a really bright copper look, and it can look really, really gorgeous. But anyhow, for our purposes, we're going to leave this as it is. And I'm just going to dry it really quick. And then we'll have a proper look at it and we can decide on the next color. Okay. Where are you? There you go. Now we're going to go for our color. This is Peridot green, which is a really great color. It's transparent as well. Basically the way transparents work is that you need to, as a general rule, use this completely clear flux on the copper first. You'll see when we put this transparent on the raw copper, it'll go very black and murky, so you don't get the proper colors. But anyway, the colors in the transparent range, they are colored, but they're much less dense than the opaque ones. You can see through them basically. So we'll be able to see this copper through. We'll be able to see what it looks like on the very opaque white, on the white that's gone kind of burned, and then so we'll fire that. And then we'll see what it looks like, and we may add another transparent color on top of it. And for this one, I'm going to use an 80 mesh sifter. Don't need that much again. And this is just a regular piece of card with a square cut out of it using a Stanley knife. And I'm just putting it there in the middle. I was going to kind of put it off center, but I'm going to put it more or less in the middle there. And we'll go for it. I'm actually not even gonna, oh I will. I was gonna sort of blend it out, but I think I will put a total square on. Okay, there we are. Now I'm gonna need something to lift it off. Okay, there we go. There's our transparent green. We'll get it in the kiln and have a look at it in a minute. Now this is straight out of the kiln. Just took it out a couple of seconds ago. And We'll let it cool down before we examine it closely. I'm not going to touch it yet until I'm completely sure that the enamel is fully fused and I can't damage it by touching it with this nippers. It's gone very yellow, but it'll go very green. And it'll be interesting to see how it affects, how it looks on top of this white, how it looks on top of this burned off white. You can already see that it's very murky here, and then how it looks on top of the flux. So we'll just give that a minute to cool down, and then we'll be back to having a look at it. Here's our tile now. I'm going to continue working on this because it doesn't look finished to me. But anyhow, let me just show you a few things. You can see, let's start with the white. It's still very, very white. And have a look at how the green looks on top of it. It looks fantastic, actually. I love that. Now the green looks slightly darker on the white that had burned away. Can you see the blue? That's got quite bluish green there. So it has a lovely effect with that. On the transparent, I mean, you can see the copper underneath it. You can see the burned bits, you can see those little dots. You can see that it's gone very murky here, where it's literally right on top of the copper. And because this Peridot was a leaded enamel, and this flux was unleaded, I don't know if you can see it, it's created a sort of halo around it. I'll do a lesson on how leaded and unleaded enamels affect one another. I do use leaded flux as well, but I happen to really, really like this flux, so that's why I use it a lot, even with leaded enamels. So it has a little halo. You might be able to just about see that in the light. Anyhow, I'm going to choose another color and another stencil to go on top of this, and then we'll see how that looks. Okay, my next color is going to be Glacier blue. This again is one of the Milton Bridge enamels. It's a transparent. It's a very icy blue, hence the name. And because the grains are very large in this Glacier, I'm going to use a 40 mesh sifter, which I almost never use 40 mesh sifters. But we'll see, and you can see what it looks like. You can see this, how big those grains are. It's a good example of the different size particles in enamelling. Right, I'm going to take that away. It's quite messy, but that's alright. And take some of that away. What I also want to do is see how this area fares, because it's not going to get any enamel put onto it. And then we'll put that in for 2 minutes. Here's our tile again, and now the Glacier blue hasn't had much of an effect on the flux. Now the transparent colors are really made for fine metals, fine silver, sterling silver, gold, because then you can they really shine when you see them like that. I'll give you an example. Anyway, you can see how it has worked here with the white. It looks really nice with the white, and because the particles were very big, it has a mottled look instead of a dense look. If you used very fine particles on that, it would have a different look, and I'll do a video of that. You can see now how it's turned that Peridot green a little bit bluer. It didn't really change that much, it was just in the kiln. This has gone darker because again it's been fired, like that white, there's only one layer of white and it's been fired 5 times now, so it's going bluer and bluer, and it'll affect this. The halo is getting slightly bigger, I think you'll be able to see that, and we're getting that actually, I think those little strange marks, I think there might have been some of the Glacier might have gone on to that. I think it did actually. I think that's why it's given that sort of little pimply look. And then we've just got our little tiny piece of exposed copper. And I'm going to put an opaque color on this and overfire it. I'm going to put it in, I think, for 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes, and we'll really see what that looks like. So I'm going to put on, where is it? This beautiful pale yellow, and then we'll see what that looks like. we're going to use a few round stencils here, just oddly cut out circles. And I'm going to use a 100 mesh sifter with the pale yellow. This is a leaded yellow from Milton Bridge as well, and I'll put that on the list. I'm going to do this corner and some of the white, and this is an opaque color. And then I'm going to move the stencil. Take some of that off. Oh damn, I got some on here, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Okay. Then I'm going to put another little, whoops, bit here. And I do want to take that off the exposed copper because I want to keep that little, take it off there. Okay. When you're using stencils, you need to be careful that it doesn't, you know, that you remember to brush it off the areas that you don't want it on. Unless your stencil covers the whole thing. And I think we're going to put just a little bit on the very edge here. That, we'll have to see what that looks like. I'm going to put a lot on the very edge and let it sort of fade out. See what happens. And I think I'm just going to leave that there. And we'll see what it looks like when it comes out of the kiln. Now this has been in for 4 minutes, which is a long time, and a lot of it is burned off, so it should be interesting. Ooh, I like that. I kind of like that burned look, but it may not be for everybody. So that's been in for 4 minutes. I wouldn't normally leave something in for 4 minutes because it really burns a lot off. And you can see that's been really burned off there. That was already our exposed copper. The white is really green now. It seems to have sucked in a lot of the yellow that was there. And you can see a halo with the opaque yellow, you know, where it's meeting this unleaded. So it's leaded versus unleaded. It's gotten a lot of dots there. Where else was it? There was a very small amount here, I think. I'll have to go back to the video and look. So when this is cool, we'll see what its true colors look like. And you can see that it's actually gotten quite green around here. So anyway, I'm going to let that cool and then we're going to have a look at it, and I think we'll leave it at that. Okay, see you in a minute. Okay, I'm back at my murky water. This is our lovely piece. I'm really happy with that. I love it. I'm going to get more copper showing here, and I'm using one of my diamond embedded files, and I'm just giving that a scratch there. And what I'll probably do is I'll actually put a little bit of Renaissance wax on that, just so it's not completely raw looking. Now it'll have loads of scratches from this file, but I don't care. I think that'll look nice. I'm going to leave the scratches there. Now I could also try and do that here. I might even try and do that here. That's a bit more work because it's so very burned. But you can see it's coming. Yeah, there we go. Now that file is very sharp. You can also use what's called an London stone. That's this thing. It's like it sort of feels a little bit like granite. But it's really, really good if you make mistakes, or if you suddenly find you've got a big black piece of oxide in your white and you don't want it. You scrape it off. Then you use completely clean water, running water, with a glass brush. Dry it, put it in the kiln, and then the black spot will be gone. A little bit there. And I think I'm going to leave that. Right, so there's our piece. And when it's dry, I'll photograph it and you can have a look at it. Great, thank you for watching.